This is interesting. All right. Well, welcome to our very first Teletown Hall. And this is Steve Waugh. And we are talking tonight about Southern Maryland. And, well, before we get going, what I do is just like to tell you a little bit about myself. My mother was an Annapolis girl. My dad was Naval Academy, class of 63. We ended up moving all over. I even lived overseas for a few years and went to high school in South Texas and then came back to Maryland for college at the Naval Academy. I'm class 86 with an Aero-Astro degree and spent 20 years in the Marine Corps flying Harriers. I'm married now. I have two kids. My older boy, Nick, is in the Navy, and he's in flight school down in Pensacola. We're very excited. And then our son, Philip, is at College Park, and he's in his second year up there, and he's doing really well. So we're real excited. Anyway, if you have any questions for me, feel free to press 0, and then we'll get your questions and get you in queue. And I mean, the whole idea here tonight is we want to hear from you. We want to hear what questions you have and what your concerns are for the state. Because obviously there's plenty of people out there right now. Half the state is thinking about leaving. They're leaving because Annapolis has failed us. They failed us on jobs, they failed us on taxes, and they failed us on spending. And after 4 years of uncontrolled spending, we have the exact same number of jobs. And that's probably because of all the tax hikes that Mr. O'Malley has inflicted on us and made us the laughing stock of the country with the rain tax. So we've got to constrain the out-of-control spending on things like this $140 million website and the implementation of Obamacare in the state, which is going to quadruple our Medicaid costs. They've even admitted it inside of their own budget that this is going to run us down. So they failed us on jobs, they have failed us on taxes, and that's all because of an epic fail on spending. So what are we going to do about it? Is all lost? Do we give up hope and leave? The state's turned cobalt blue. Well, quite honestly, that doesn't sound like Winston Churchill, and it's certainly not Chesty Puller. And I am a Marine. I am first to fight for right and freedom, so I am choosing to fight here and now for my state and for my kids because I want to make this state a better place for them. And it's like Mr. Hogan says, he wants to change Maryland and bring us back to prosperity. And so what I'm hoping we're going to be able to do is reach out and bring prosperity back to the state as we work together in Annapolis. So I'm Steve Waugh, and if you're just joining us, please press 0 for a question. You can pose a question to us. We'd love to hear from you and find out what's going on with you. But maybe we can start out. Let me ask you one question. Are taxes your top concern as we're going into this election this next year? If taxes are your top concern, please press 1 right now. If they're not, press 2. And let us know if this is what you're thinking, if this is your top priority. It certainly is from the majority of people that I talk to. And this is why people are thinking about leaving the state because of the high taxes. We can't afford to live and work and retire here in the state anymore. With a rain tax, it's the laughing stock of the country. I mean, when the governor of Texas flies out to Maryland and buys commercial time to make fun of you, you've got a tax problem. And we have a gas tax we all know about that's taking billions of dollars from us at the pump. And we're not seeing that money come back. In fact, a few years ago, St. Mary's County used to get $8 million a year in taxes dollars to help with funds, but now we're only getting $800,000, so it's considerably less. So where's all that money going? What's it all getting pumped into? And it's not us. So right now we have businesses and retirees leaving the state in the thousands. Families are getting taxed an extra $4,000 a year. So this is all with Mr. O'Malley revising or raising the tax rates 40 separate times in the last 4 years. And we just heard recently that Mr. Francho says that we're going to be in a $400 million hole. So, like I said, Steve Waugh, and I'm running for state senate because I want to be there, and I want to help prevent them from raising our taxes once again. We have to stop this unnecessary and irresponsible spending, and I don't want to be a legislator that just increases the debt to buy votes and then acts surprised. So, we need to stop this spending and cut taxes. So once again, I'd like to invite you all to press 0 if you have a question for me. If you have a question that you'd like to pose, if you want to know why I'm running, or let me know what your top issue is. So this is your chance to ask questions. Let me ask you a question. Do you trust Democrats to cut your taxes and regulation? If you trust them, press 1. If you don't trust them, press 2. So, I'm Steve Waugh, and I'm running as a Republican, and I'm running on a platform of smaller government. It's like I say, jobs are the issue, taxes are the problem, and spending is the cause. And that's why I'm here tonight on this live teletown hall, is I want to talk to you guys. I want to hear from you, and I want to know, what's on your mind. So, let's talk about spending for a moment. The last 20 years, our state spending has gone from $13 billion to $39 billion. And just last spring, when they were in the budget hearings, there was an opportunity to cut the taxes, cut the expenditures by $240 million, which is just a rounding error. It's less than 1%. And unfortunately, Senator Dyson did not take that opportunity. So, well, let's hear from Thomas in Leonardtown. Thomas,
Steve,
what's your question?
I'm a supporter. You were starting to address it. You asked if spending was the number one thing, and it's a very important thing. I mean, taxes. But the spending, how do you plan to stop spending the money? It's going to have to come from somewhere. I mean, I'm not talking about taxes. You're going to have to cut something. Have you thought about that much?
I have, and that's, Thomas, that's a really good question. And obviously there's a dozen things in the budget where they're just wasting our money. And, we all heard about this $140 million website for Obamacare in the state. And just as a data point, Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Lab designed, built, launched, and flew a spacecraft that landed on an asteroid for $120 million. So I got to believe that a website could be done for a bit less than that. The easy kill that's out there is this $38 million of legislative initiatives, which is essentially pork barrel projects from every one of the legislators. They introduced these debt bills as a way to keep buying votes at home. We can stop that, and that's $38 million. But the most important thing we can do is to stop the increase or slow the increase. Such as last year, the first thing that the Spending Affordability Committee does is they decided to raise spending by 4%. So that was about a $1 billion increase, and they did it without looking at the revenue stream. And what did we hear from the comptroller last week? That we have a $400 million hole in the budget. So we have to stop growing the budget and let the economy catch up. So cut the spending so that we can cut the taxes and we can grow the jobs. So that's why, what Larry Hogan is saying and what I'm saying is working together. So jobs are the issue, taxes are the problem, and spending is the cause. So you got to cut the spending so you can cut the taxes so we can grow the jobs. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, you got it pretty good. Thanks.
Well, thank you, sir. All right. Let me see here. Well, I suppose a good question would be is why didn't they buy better software for the website? Because they're fixing to spend another $50 million on good software. They should have got that on the first try. They should have had some oversight hearings, and we should have had some investigations to hold people accountable after wasting hundreds of millions of dollars on a website. So we need good leadership that's going to go to Annapolis and hold people accountable and make the state live within its means so that we can keep more of what we earn and fund the top priorities first. All right, if you have any other questions, please press 0. I'm Steve Waugh, and I'm looking to hear from you. So if you can, if you have a question, press 0, and I'd like to hear from you. I'd like to know what's on your mind right now. Actually, let me ask you a question. are your Second Amendment gun rights a top issue for you? Is this something that you're personally concerned with, that you want to go after? Because right now we have SB 281, which is just an unconstitutional attack on our Second Amendment. And when the state is asking you to do training to get a license, to qualify to get a permit, to exercise a right, that's not protecting your family. It's not protecting your rights. So we know we just had a kid in Texas who defended his home from invaders and saved 8 people. We have a jihadi in Oklahoma who beheaded a woman. He was stopped with a gun that's been outlawed by SB 281, and yet the government is calling that workplace violence. And that's just unreasonable. So our state thinks that law-abiding citizens are a bigger risk than anything else. And right now we have Lieutenant Governor Brown who wants to extend this SB 281 to cover shotguns. Now, the senator who wrote SB 281 is now Dyson's biggest donor. Now, I've written a bill to repeal SB 281, and I already have 7 co-sponsors, and I have several delegates who want to cross-file it in the House. So it's just not enough to say no symbolically. This requires actions, and you've got to get out there, and you've got to work on a daily basis. So, all right. Let's see. Got a question here from Glenn in Colton Point. Glenn, what's your question?
Steve, Glenn Gass down Colton's Point.
Yes, sir.
I work with a number of local homeowners who have gone to the permitting process and encountered significant state bureaucracies such as the Critical Areas Commission. These people go in with reasonable proposals for reasonable use on their property, and they get crushed, incur enormous costs and time penalties for getting anything approved. And in most cases, they go to the local land use boards for the hearings, and here they're faced with appointees from the Attorney General's office to basically take them on one-on-one in those type of hearings. What type of relief do you see out there to those types of regulations and how people are treated by them?
Well, Glenn, I think you've obviously got a close finger on the pulse of what's been happening. I think Annapolis is really centralizing control with Planned Maryland, and I think that they're trying to control how we use our land. I live in the critical area too, so I feel your pain. It's very difficult and it's very onerous for us because the people who are writing these regulations and running it all live in Annapolis, and they simply don't have a concept of what it's like to live out here in a rural area and to actually live on the waterfront. So we need someone who's going to go up there and poke a finger in the chest of the organizations that are regulating us out of our homes and out of our land and preventing us from doing the things that we want to do and that we rightfully ought to be able to do. Does that answer your question, sir? All right. I'll tell you what. Next one, Patricia from St. Mary's. Did we get you on here? Patricia, are you on? Okay, maybe we're not getting her on now. All right, let's try Gerald from Mechanicsville. Gerald?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, sir. What's your question?
My question was, I noticed that on the next upcoming election, there's a question on there that the easiest way for me to put this is, back when they were raising the alcohol tax, Johnny Wood, the local legislator down here for St. Mary's, had actually called me back. None of the other legislators did when I answered a question or something on the internet, but he did, and also brought up about the transportation fund raising the gas taxes. And he said the problem that Maryland's always had is that they've gone in and they raised the taxes, for transportation and other fees for transportation, but then Maryland would go through and rob the money out of the transportation fund. Then there are no funds in there to fix the roads, fix the bridges, or anything else, so now they got to raise tolls, they have to raise the gas tax again, and he said he wasn't going to vote for it unless there was a stipulation in there that those funds could not be used for anything other than transportation. Now, to me, this isn't a big issue, but you can drive right across there to Dahlgren and pay 30 cents less a gallon than you're paying for it here in St. Mary's County, and it's all because of the taxes. But are you for or against this proposal that's coming up, and what are you going to do to keep the transportation funds used for transportation and not used for anything else in the state?
That's a really good question, and I think it's informative that the politicians in Annapolis keep taking money out of the Transportation Trust Fund so much, and it's so bad they don't even trust themselves anymore. So they created this amendment to create the lockbox for a 3/5 majority. Unfortunately, they already have a 3/5 majority, so right now, if we send the same people back up there, they're just going to vote to rob that lockbox again. So we've got to send different people to Annapolis if we want a different outcome. But there's plenty of money that's being collected in the Transportation Trust Fund. It simply needs to stay there, and it needs to get used on the roads. What's been happening with the gas tax is that it goes into the Transportation Trust Fund, and then it gets reconciled out to go pay for a lot of other things that they don't want to have to explain. And here locally, we were getting $8 million a year for roads, but it's been trimmed back. We're only getting $800,000 now. That's only a tenth of what we used to get and what we ought to get.
Right.
So we can't afford to have the status quo anymore. We need to get the resources we require to fix the roads that we have, build the roads that we need, and then we need legislators actually going to argue passionately to fix the bridge and build a new span. Because I worry down the road that we're going to lose our competitiveness if we get a lot of sprawl when the next BRAC happens. Because those Navy jobs that came here and the engine of our economy, they can leave just as fast. So does that answer your question, sir?
Yeah, I know that because I'm one of those people that I know that you had mentioned a statement before about people leaving the state of Maryland. It's possible within the next 2 to 5 years I plan to leave Maryland. I've lived in Maryland since 1955, and I've lived in St. Mary's County since 1976. But all of the taxes, like you mentioned earlier, the rain tax and the flush tax and everything else, then they're just taxing us out because of the way that things are. That's one reason why Beretta is leaving Maryland, because they're afraid that what they manufacture, the law that was passed last and put into effect October 1st of last year, could come right around to bite them in the rear end, and they would end up losing money and other things. So, but all these the taxes and the way that they're structuring things are driving not only the residents out of Maryland, long-time residents, but it's also driving the businesses out.
Yes, sir. I think you're right. And I'll tell you what. Let me ask everybody here on the phone. Do you think your gas taxes are too high? If you do, press 1. If you don't, you can press 2. If you have a question for me, please press 0. Love to get your questions. And thanks, Gerald. I think that was very much on point, and I couldn't agree with you more. So
thank you.
Let's try talking with Patricia. Let's see if we can get her on here. Oh, my goodness. We're trying very hard to get Patricia on. It's just not going to happen. All right. Well, I'm sorry, Patricia. I appreciate you asking a question. Just for whatever reason, we're getting locked out on that. Well, looks like the majority of people here, in fact, 100% of the folks on the phone, say that the gas tax is too high, and that's easy to believe. I haven't heard anybody yet who thinks that we need to pay more. So, again, if you have a question, please press 0, and we'll get you in line to answer it as quickly as possible. So let me circle back and talk about the environment for a moment. We're talking about the rain tax, and I'm sure everyone thinks that the rain tax is one of the worst taxes that they've ever heard. I mean, everyone's making fun of us. And the sad reality is that the money that it's collecting isn't going to fix the things that it needs to. Because I think we'd all agree that the Bay is the most important feature of our ecosystem down here in southern Maryland. and it's under attack right now. And it's not from our septic systems. It's not from fertilizer in our lawn. It's from the Conowingo Dam that hasn't been dredged since it was built in 1929, and 80% of the sediment in the bay comes from that dam every time we get a big rain. So we need to have some new leadership in there that, if they haven't fixed it in 20 years, they aren't going to fix it in the next 4. So we need to get in there and focus on the big issues first and save the bay with the taxes that we're already collecting. So, all right, if you have a question for me, please press 0. And if you think that we ought to be repealing the rain tax, go ahead and press 1. If you think the rain tax is okay, press 2. But I just want to thank everyone for coming on and listening and chatting with me tonight. Steve Waugh, I'm your candidate for State Senate. I appreciate your time. And let me see. Trying to move on to another one, and I can't. Well, let's talk for a moment about jobs here. And I'm sure everyone knows that the job market here isn't the greatest in the world. We've had a pretty flat economy in the last 4 years, in spite of all of this spending that's been going on. And if an extra $10 billion would create jobs, we'd be swimming in them. But even now, our kids can't find jobs. In fact, I know a young man who graduated from College Park recently with 2 STEM degrees.
Well, and be my turn, but nobody wants to get through to me. I'm Patricia, and my question was about women's rights.
Patricia, I just
Yay.
Finally got you in. Go ahead. I am
Yay.
so sorry.
Well, I'm going to take you off of the finance topic that you've been so aptly talking about.
Okay.
I would like to know how you feel about women's rights. The legalization of the abortions has been done. We're talking now we should be moving forward, having more women in government. We should have more equal pay for the women who do the equal work of men. Where are you standing on all of that?
Well, certainly, the history of the Republican Party has been for women's rights. In fact, the Republican Party led the fight back in the early 20th century. So, we certainly support women's rights, and I would continue to support women's rights. And I believe that right now women are doing great. In fact, I talk with a lot of young girls who are looking for their first career, and I vector them in towards the military because there's no better place to go in and make sure that you get absolutely equal pay for equal work. And I'm quite certain that there are opportunities for us to improve things, and there's always room for investigation when we find that there's genuine misconduct on the part of some business. I think that the question of health care for women is real important as well. And right now, I'm personally very concerned about where abortion is going in the state. And, Maryland is one of the few states that still allows late-term abortion. And as a result, we have women who are dying. There's 16 abortion clinics in the state. And you all may remember about a year ago, a young lady went in who was 33 weeks pregnant and then died from the abortion. And it's because abortion clinics in the state are less regulated than a dentist, have less oversight than a plastic surgeon, and more tax dollars than you'd know. So I think it's important for us to protect not only the unborn, but we need to protect the mothers. And we have a lot of great organizations out there like CareNet that do ultrasounds and counseling for young women in trouble and needed. And then great groups like the Knights of Columbus and Rachel's Vineyard that counsels the mothers that are going through these problems. But what we need to do is we need to pass a law, not unlike Texas just did, that makes abortion clinics live up to the standard of an outpatient surgical clinic. The doctors have admitting privileges in a nearby hospital, and the clinic has to be physically close to a hospital so that if a mother is ill or is in trouble, that she can get to an emergency room rapidly. And I also believe it's important for our state senator to co-sponsor the Pain Capable Unborn Protection Act for children. So, all right, let's see. Hopefully that answers your question. Next, let's move to Janice in Lusby. Janice, what's your question?
Hi. I just heard you make a comment about women you were saying that they should be looking into the military as a career? Did I hear
absolutely.
that right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, with the downsizing of the government right now at the end of 2 wars, and with the Army changing their regulations, just to enter the Army you have to have 2-year college degree. How is that possible coming straight out of college? I mean, out of high school. How would you direct these young women? The recruiters are telling them. I have a son that's a sergeant right now in the Army. He's doing everything he can do just to stay in. He has 14 years. It's very possible he will be out within 1 year. And, I mean, I don't blame the Republicans. I do blame Obama. But I'm just saying, you're steering these girls or anybody in that direction. It's kind of a tricky situation, don't you think?
Okay, well, thank you for the question. My personal experience is 20 years in the Marine Corps, and it was very rewarding, and I was honored to have the opportunity to serve. And what I saw when I was in from 1982 on, that opportunities for women have really, really expanded within the military. And right now we have a lady who is the Vice Chief of Naval Operations. That's pretty extraordinary. So I think women in the military have come a long, long way. And there are a lot of opportunities. Now, it's not always easy to enlist, and it's not necessarily a guarantee when you enlist that you're going to be able to stay for 20 years. I certainly know that. I saw a lot of my compatriots, get passed over for promotion and then forced out, and that's just the way of the military. But I do think that it's a great career opportunity for young women because they do have an opportunity to get on and get some fantastic training, some terrific experience, and equal pay and equal opportunities for advancement. I mean, women now are in all the combat arms. In fact, I flew Harriers in combat with some women, and they did a fine job. So I think that there's a lot of opportunities for young ladies. It's not necessarily easy to get in. It's going to be more competitive as the military downsizes, but it's still a terrific opportunity for them. So, did I answer your question, Janice?
Yeah, that was a pretty good answer. I was actually holding to ask you a different total question until you said that, and then I said, well, wait a minute, I want to ask that one. But mine had more to do with you said you wanted to cut spending, and usually when someone in the government cuts spending, of course it's going to be government spending. I work for a local government in Southern Maryland. We haven't had a raise, or I should say we haven't had a real raise. Let's put it that way. In over 5 years, we've had.
I hear you.
We're getting a step increase of 0.5% in January, and needless to say, it's probably because it's an election year.
Yeah.
I want to know if you're elected and you want to cut spending, does that mean that it's going to trickle down to us local government once again? Because the whole recession, we not only didn't get a raise, we had to also take everything that went up.
Yeah.
Food, health insurance. Please
Okay.
explain to me how you would like to handle.
Yep.
Your
that's
a
great question. That's a great question, and thanks for asking that. The real key, I think, is to simply stop the growth in spending. I think that's the easiest way for us to start getting back. The economy will grow into itself, but our problem right now is that the legislature starts by increasing spending and not by checking the balance book. And what we see is Annapolis taking our tax dollars and spending it on 1,000 other things, and the money isn't coming back to the county like it ought to, like I was talking about with transportation funds. Instead of getting $8 million, now we're only getting $800,000. It's because they're spending that money elsewhere on other things, and they simply don't want to explain it to us. So, yeah, you're not getting a return on your tax dollar right now. What we need to do is that we need to hold the growth in spending to zero or as close to zero as possible so that the economy can catch up with us, and then we can start cutting those taxes. And we need to set priorities in spending on the things that really matter, and that's transportation, education, and public safety. And a lot of that is aid to the counties. So that's what I want to go for is to chase down and get the resources that we require down here to do the things that government must do. So great question. Thank you, ma'am. Well, look, folks, I've taken up a lot of your time tonight. I really appreciate you staying on the call. I appreciate your time, and I hope you'll consider me when you come to the voting booth on November 4th. So thank you very much, and I would like to extend my gratitude to you for your time, and you'll all have a good night.